Chapter 121. It seems he has safely returned from Harton. Yther, who inwardly clicked his tongue at the figure who openly displayed the reluctance to come, suddenly felt someone's gaze directed at him and shifted his eyes. The owner of the gaze was a boy sitting diagonally behind Keol de Diarca. As soon as their eyes met, the boy with the lovely features of a doll, his reddish hair, immediately turned his head in a different direction. I don't think I have seen his face before. Who is he? However, Yther was not given the opportunity to ponder the boy's identity. This was because Kishir, with his adjutant Nathan Zuckerman, made his appearance at the VIP seat. Behold, His Grace Duke Paleta. Long live Duke Paleta, long live the Emperor. A cheer erupted from the section where common believers had gathered, far louder than when the Crown Prince had appeared. Kishir lightly raised his hand in acknowledgement of the cheer, then approached the Crown Prince and exchanged greetings. While outwardly they conversed as members of the imperial family, the air between them was subtly tense. Watching the Crown Prince Kashtian, who was handing some words over to Kishir with a smile, Yther felt an unfamiliar emotion. Crown Prince Kashtian seems to openly dislike Kishir. Was it always like this? Yther, who had been a close aide of the Emperor for a long time since Kashtian ascended the throne, knew very well how his eyes looked when he was in an extremely bad mood. The young Crown Prince, who was barely in his late teens, seemed unable to fully hide his emotions. I didn't know when I saw him with Kishir in my previous life. Throughout the festival, Yther thought that the person causing trouble around the cavalry was Duke Diarca, even if it seemed outwardly to be the Crown Prince. He had considered it a mere attempt to stamp on the budding threat of the newborn cavalry, which couldn't really be a sincere threat to the Crown Prince faction. However, seeing that expression, Yther wondered if the Crown Prince's will was more involved in this matter than he had initially thought. Previously, as soon as Emperor Kashtian ascended the throne, Kishir retired quickly and died soon after. I never thought about their relationship. But on reflection, Kashtian was the one who issued the order to assassinate Kishir. The obvious fact felt strangely unfamiliar. It made him think that the memory of the day he had gone to kill Kishir might have been distorted. Perhaps there had been circumstances unknown to him hidden in Kashtian's orders, which he had hitherto considered purely political decisions. Yther looked at the face of Crown Prince Kashtian, who still showed signs of youth, and overlaid it with the future image of him. Yther, do you like the commander that much? You can't take your eyes off him as soon as he arrives. Just then, Kana joked, snapping him out of his almost grave contemplation. No, it's not like that. Well, you don't need to deny it so vehemently. We are all the same after all. Among the nobles seated in the guest section, many drew the attention of others due to their distant appearances, a result of their imperial blood. Prince Kashtian of the imperial family, for instance, had been compared to the splendid flower since his childhood for his exceptional beauty. Yet, even amidst such nobles, Kishir commanded an overwhelming presence. Anyone who had once seen him found it difficult to easily tear their eyes away, as if they were entranced by something. Ah, the commander seems to be looking around. Do you think he might be searching for us? Before Yther could retort that it was unlikely, he saw Kishir, who had just noticed them, flash a bright smile and swiftly close his mouth. Duke Paleta is looking our way. Even if he wanted to believe that Kishir was not looking at them, he couldn't deny it due to the enthusiastic reactions of the surrounding believers. Yudhir pretended not to notice Kishir's gaze, but Kishir definitely began waving his hand. The cheers instantly grew louder. Amid the loud acclaim, Khana, while holding back her laughter and waving back at Kishir, spoke. See, I told you, you should greet him too, Yudhir. If you don't, he will continue like this. Without a choice, Yudhir glared at Kishir and briefly bowed his head in greeting. It was a small gesture, but it seemed enough to satisfy Kishir, who lowered his hand. However, due to his unusual behavior, the surrounding nobles turned their gaze towards Yudhir. Most lost interest quickly after seeing the military uniform that Yudhir and Khana were wearing, but a few were different. Keol too, surprised at discovering Yudhir, opened his mouth wide, then suddenly turning his head away. Prince Kashtian, for some unknown reason, gazed at them for quite some time. After his cold gaze disappeared, Yudhir decided to complain about this incident to Kishir later on. The Holy Pope will appear shortly. All believers, prepare yourselves. Not long after the worship began, 12 senior priests came forward, sprinkling holy water and reciting prayers of blessing. Soon, the elderly Pope, dressed in a long, thick white robe, revealed himself. His name was McLaren III. It's been a long time. Yudhir looked up at the face of the Pope, who would leave this world about 5 years from now. Even though he had only seen him face to face a few times in official settings, it was strangely emotional to see this man, who was dead in his memory, alive in front of his eyes. The nobles, who did not appear particularly devout, acted like deeply faithful believers during the worship. Among the common believers, many were moved to tears upon seeing the Pope. While watching these scenes and staying vigilant for any suspicious signs, the time for the end of the worship service approached. As the Pope finished his final prayer, a waterfall of light made of divine power cascaded from above, evoking admiration and prayers that resonated throughout the square. It was a beautiful sight, but those who were dispatched to main security could not afford to observe it for long. They had to be alert to control the crowd that was about to leave the square. Sure enough, as soon as the Pope finished his blessing and rose from his seat with the senior priests, the common believers started rushing towards the exit of the square. Yudhir had saved several individuals who were scrambling among the crowd using the power of the wind, and handed over the crying children who had lost their parents to nearby imperial troops. The narrow exit of the plaza was a chaotic mess, overcrowded with those trying to leave. Why on earth do they insist on worshipping in such a place? It can't be the only available location. Such a perverse preference. Yudhir, I'll be right back. I'm going to help that old lady over there. She seems to have lost her group. All right, I'll be back soon. Khana, who had been using her abilities to assist those in need just like Yudhir, spotted another distressed individual and ran over to them, leaving Yudhir alone with a troubled expression on his face. After Khana disappeared, Yudhir sighed momentarily, only to turn his head towards a small voice that suddenly echoed from behind him. You are a member of the cavalry, right? It appeared to be another person who had lost their way and needed help, but the person turned out to be unexpected. A boy with a doll-like, beautiful appearance, wearing a simple black cloak, was looking up at Yudhir with a stern expression on his face. Yudhir glanced toward the VIP seats, but the nobles, including Kishir, who had been there, had all disappeared. Did he lose his way? But he came here intentionally. Even if he was a young boy, it was a noble invited to the VIP seats of the grand worship. He wouldn't be an ordinary clan member. Feeling a hint of suspicion, Yudhir slowly opened his mouth. It might be better if you ask for help from the priests or the Imperial Knights rather than me. They can't help me. I came looking for you. The boy's voice was very small, but it penetrated his ears with peculiar clarity. Could you hear my story in a place that's out of sight from others? It will only take a moment. At that moment, Yudhir's eyes widened slightly. Is he an awakener? He had felt a faint energy, although it wasn't entirely certain, but the energy he felt from the boy was undoubtedly the unique power of the awakener. What should I do? Yudhir hesitated for a moment. How could he be sure that this wasn't a trap set by Duke Diarca to target the cavalry? When considering the team, it would obviously be right to send the boy away. However, for some reason, he felt uneasy about the boy's eyes, which, contrary to his confident demeanor, trembled like a small animal being chased. Follow me. In the end, Yudhir led the boy behind a large statue of an angel out of the view of others. A place where a few old trees intertwined skillfully to form a shade, making it an ideal location to hide. It seems you'd prefer to avoid the eyes of others, so it might be better if you cover your face with your hood while we talk. Oh, thank you. As he lightly pulled the tip of the hood that hung behind the boy's cloak over his head, a flustered voice of gratitude returned. Seeing his clumsy behavior, he doesn't seem like he's here to cause trouble. Then, what could be the reason? Yudhir opened his mouth, his curiosity piqued. So, what is it that you want to talk about?